Absolutely. And I think we are live as we're saying thanks to each other. And as people are getting signed up and coming along, I'll just tell you where you are. If you're not sure or you don't know where you are, what's happening here, this is the Squirrel Squadron. This is my community of technical and non-technical people learning together. And guess what we have on the screen? We have a very technical person, me, and a very not technical person, Donna.
And I'm technical-ish.
Yeah, technical-ish. Excellent. That's the kind of people that we want.
I grew up in Silicon Valley, so
exactly. Yeah. You've got to kind of absorb it through your skin, I imagine. So, Donna is in San Francisco. I'm in North Carolina at the moment. I normally am in England, but I'm here visiting family. And we're talking today about customer retention and making customers love you forever. So we do these events every week for the Squirrel Squadron. Just to let you know about a few things coming up while people are signing up and getting themselves settled. We've got events in the next couple of weeks. We've got one on keeping your work visible. So making sure you always know what those crazy engineers are doing. How are you going to help them to make sure that they're accountable to you for what's happening? Because often people say, I have no idea what my tech team does. That should never happen. So I'm going to tell you how to solve that. After that, I'm going to be in Munich. So if you're anywhere near Munich and you'd like to meet up in person, please let me know soon so I can get that set up. And also after that, we're going to have another live stream, and that's going to be on why fun is the key metric that I use for judging technology teams. They should be having fun all the time. That doesn't mean they get nifty perks and they get to go on fancy vacations or something or get to play around with cool software. It means they're having fun doing things that are relevant to business people. So I'm going to be, and your business goals. So I'm going to be talking about that in a few weeks. So you can find all of that at squirrelsquadron.com. Let's see, we have an advert. I'm going to ask Laura to take care of our somebody advertising. Marcin asks, and by the way, please ask questions. Those comments, we're not looking for people to advertise things in the chat, but absolutely asking questions is something Donna and I really thrive on. We have some prepared material. I have lots of questions for Donna about her area of expertise, which I'll get to in a moment. And I'm going to answer Marcin's question about my name in just a second. But please do what Marcin's done, which is to ask a question anytime in the chat. Bring that up and throw it in and make sure that we have the opportunity to answer your question. These go much better if you interrupt, bring up things, disagree, bring up topics for us to discuss. Otherwise, we'll just chat to each other, which we'll have a lot of fun doing, but we may not cover the things that are important to you. So please make sure to do that. Marcin, answering your question, there are lots of people named Douglas and not many people named Squirrel, and so everybody calls me Squirrel. And that's how it's easy to remember me. It turns out to be good branding. People remember it most of the time, or at least they remember there's some rodent guy who talks about technology and not technology. And that's why. And somebody came up with the name Squirrel Squadron. I don't actually remember who it is, but they said, we should have a community and it should be called the Squirrel Squadron. And there it is. Excellent question. Thank you, Marcin. Now, I wanted to mention also that we have a forum for the Squirrel Squadron, and that's a place where you can discuss and ask questions and bring up topics. Donna's there, and we've been having a little poll on retention and issues there. Marcin says, thanks. Great. You're welcome, Marcin. In particular, today, earlier, I was having this fascinating discussion. We've been going back and forth with one person in Denver and someone else, I think he's in Australia. We have thousands of people from around the world. And we were discussing how to get knowledge transferred among people in your technology team and to people in your technology team. How do you make sure that you remember what it is that you're doing? For example, how you retain customers. So there's all kinds of discussions like that on the forum. There'll be a follow-up here. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, go to squirrelsquadron.com. Excellent. Well, let's turn to today's topic, which is how to make sure customers love you forever and they keep paying you. That's the favorite thing that we'd love for them to do. And we have with a very, very privileged to have Donna Weber. She's coming to us all the way from San Francisco. Donna is a global expert on customer onboarding and making sure that customers are not only coming to you. I mean, you've done all that hard work of marketing and telling them about the product and selling it to them and making sure they actually pay you and they get going, they get started. And then far too many of my clients just kind of let them go and say, we're going to go chase after the next new ones. We're going to go after something different. Donna says, hang on a second. You might have a leaky bucket here. We have to do something so that you actually retain those people and they stick around. Donna, did you want to say hello and maybe a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, first of all, for including me in the Squirrel Squadron. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be here. I'm Donna Weber, and I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area, although I have lived in the UK for 10 years. So I am a dual citizen. And so I focus on, well, what happens after you get your customer? And in these days of, consumption-based models, pay as you go, subscription, it's not enough just to get a new customer. You got to keep that customer. And oftentimes, your customers, we'll dig into this, but you really need to know how long you need to keep that customer till you get past that break even point. Just because you get a new logo doesn't mean you're rolling in profits.
You're probably losing money on day one.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Makes sense. Let me tell you a brief story because this kind of illustrates where there's the tech, non-tech divide that I really want to explore with you, Donna. I remember when my boss, my very first CEO boss I had as a new CTO, came to me after a few years of operation. We were selling to businesses, so not retail stuff, not selling to millions and millions of customers, but to like 10 world-class banks. And he said, Squirrel, we're going to start doing some marketing. And I said, that sounds like a terrible idea. We definitely should not do marketing. That's unethical. That's terrible. That's going to be fooling people into thinking that we do something that we don't. It's so distracting. And and he sort of looked at me very strangely, thought I'd landed from Mars and ignored me, thank heavens. But that's an attitude that I often see from people who don't understand marketing very well. And I think we're going to have two groups here on this live stream, Donna. We're going to have folks who know you a bit better and who are thinking about marketing, customer service, building rapport with customers, and technical folks who may be across that divide, who might be thinking like I do. And I think the great thing about retention is it's one where those two things come together really nicely, because you're dealing with people who are actually paying you money, who are customers who are in the system. So us engineers, we've kind of thought about that. Oh, we want to make sure they can use it well. But we tend to think about it as a service activity. We think of it as what we need to do is just make sure the system is up and it's working the way it's supposed to, and all the features are following all the requirements and rules that we have, and then everything will be fine. But I think you're going to tell us that, hang on a second, you have to do more than that. Just running the service and making sure people can actually use the software, that's not enough. Is that right?
Absolutely. So I've worked in business to business, high tech companies for much of my career, and many startups as well. And and I go to conferences. Next week is a big SaaStr event in the San Francisco Bay Area with 10,000 people, a lot of startups, high growth startups. But I work with
some
high
people
growth
might not know what that means. SaaS is software as a service. Keep going, Donna.
Correct. Yes. And so the thing is, in the world of high tech, we're building really great products, and it's very exciting. And just because you deploy a product does not mean that a customer has received value. Just because the product goes live, just because somebody can log in, does not mean value is received. In a similar way, I recently joined a new gym in my town. And just because I have a membership, and that's a subscription, I'm paying that every month. Just because I have a membership does not mean I'm now in great shape. I have to show up. I have to learn how to use the equipment. I have to sign up. These days you got to sign up for classes in advance. I have to sign up for classes, and then I have to show up. I have to sweat. I have to, maybe I'm swearing, grunting, breathing hard. And I may even be cursing that instructor, but that's what delivers the results that I want. So
Mm-hmm.
in a similar way, just because your product is delivered does not mean that value is received. And so I'm looking to bridge that gap to ensure that your customers stick around and keep buying more.
Fantastic. And now that makes a lot of sense. And the kind of the traditional place where we talk about customer retention is that SaaS model, and especially when it's retail. So Google wants you to buy another ad on Google after you bought one because you got so much value from it. You got so many customers. Shopify wants you to set up another store or keep using them or add more customers because you sold so many t-shirts by using Shopify. Whatever tool you might be using that's a SaaS tool for the retail market, the broad market, it's kind of easy to see where the retention makes sense. But how about in business to business, like in my case where we were selling to banks? I've got a lot of customers like that. who tend to be who tend to say to me, well, I don't need to worry about these big folks that I'm dealing with. There's only 5 of them, and I go see them and play golf with them once a quarter. Isn't that enough?
Well, that world's changed.
It certainly has.
The 4 times you'd go hang out and play golf. But it's also the users. So, for example, let's say you have complex B2B software. You might, during the sales cycle, you're really marketing towards the buyer, the stakeholder, right? But then once it's deployed, you have administrators who probably need to set up users and permissions. They need to adopt it and deploy it. Then you maybe have executives who need dashboards and reports to get the insights needed. You have business analysts who are in there needing to use it. Maybe you have business users. So you need to it's not just like, great, we have this tool that's available. People need to adopt it. So metrics that are really important nowadays are product usage, right? And the reality is that with subscription software, that the majority of the revenue comes from existing customers. So McKinsey has pointed out that 50 to 80% of revenue comes from your customer installed base, even in startups. So what I notice in times of stress, like now there's economic a downturn, people turn to what's familiar, and everyone's out there trying to get new customers. But the
they sharpen their
reality,
pencils and they say, "Oh man, do we really need this thing? Do we really need Donna, sir? Oh, I don't think we need Donna anymore. Goodbye, Donna."
It's insane. Like, everyone's rushing out trying to get new logos, but the most of the growth happens with their existing customers. So this is the time to be nurturing existing customers and getting them to deeper and broader value in your solution.
Got it. Makes sense. And I just want to check I'm understanding right. The model I have in my head, and I think I may have talked across you there. I just want to make sure I've got it. The thing I'm thinking about is, in hard economic times, people want to cut. So one of the problems you get is, if you haven't got enough usage, the customers are cutting. So you've got maybe some buyer who really likes it and likes to play golf with you, but can't justify it to someone else, can't justify that budget, or maybe gets cut him or herself. And suddenly you have to justify, why is this software valuable? Why is this service that you're providing
so
inescapable
and
part of your warp and woof of your company?
There is that. So you need to really emphasize the value of your product to your existing customers, but your company gets busy trying to sell to new customers rather than nurturing existing customers. So that's where people do what's familiar, sell more, sell harder.
Exactly. Yeah. All we have to do is sell. That's what I thought when I was giving a hard time to Rich, my CEO. I said, just sell more. It's okay. Don't worry. No, what we needed to do was to keep marketing so that they deepen their connection with us. Tell me about this. So you talk a lot about onboarding as this kind of key element. And I certainly think of onboarding in a more technical way, as meaning you have some wizards and you have some clever things that guide you through the steps of how to use the software and so on. But I think there's a lot more to it that you would say goes into onboarding. So when you talk about optimizing your onboarding, what do you mean, and what things should listeners be looking for?
Well, most tech companies get very focused on, they equate onboarding with implementing or deploying the product. And with high-tech products, it could take anywhere from 3 minutes to 3 years to fully go live. Yesterday, I talked with a company that they have a platform for nonprofits, and it takes 190 days to go live, which is 6.3 months. And it's just like ridiculous, so people, they go through the whole sales process, they buy your product, and then they sit around for 6 months, 9 months, 18 months, waiting to use it. You know what? In our business to consumer world, where the customers have more and more power, they would never stand for that. So we need to look beyond just the technology going live with the product, because that's where you can set up enduring relationships with the people in your customers. Customers are made up of people. And so I built out my orchestrated onboarding framework, which includes 6 stages, one of which is deploying the product. And the others are building great relationships, helping to define success outcomes, helping to set first impressions, helping to make sure that there's adoption is going to happen, that there's that the users are enabled, helping to really create a great foundation so that the customers will stick around and buy more.
And what you're describing is a people foundation there, because us techies,
Mm-hmm.
we often forget that actually, as you said, there are people using this here software, and it would sure be helpful if, as we're rolling this out and we get it technically deployed, we're also making sure that we have the right relationships. We're actually solving the problem that the users have. I can't count for you the number of times when I've taken a good hard look at what a client of mine is doing, and it turns out they're not serving their customers at all. Their customers are not getting the value that the company thinks they're providing. And when you talk to those customers, they say, well, I need this other thing over here. And what would be wonderful is if the company were focused on giving them that value, and in doing so, maybe solved a problem that they didn't know about with a technology that is not quite what they thought it was going to be. So that kind of shift from the software or the service as you've designed it, as you had it in your head, as it solved your problem, and how it is for the actual customer is a huge value distance that can really make a big difference.
Yeah, so the value has to be meaningful and appreciated, meaningful to and appreciated by the customer. So, it's morning my time, and let's say Squirrel's like, hey, Donna, I'm going to treat you to coffee. I've got this great coffee I love, and that might be meaningful and valuable for Squirrel, but I'm a tea drinker. I lived in the UK. I drink my Earl Grey with milk. I got my big mug here. And so that is not meaningful to me. So in a similar way, when I work with companies, I see that they define value internally. Like one company I worked with, they said, we talked about some quick wins that we can deliver to customers immediately. And they're like, oh, great, we'll get them to log into our product. And logging in does not deliver value. And the reality is customers may not even care about your product. They care about the value that they want. They want to make more money. They want to save money. They want to save time, which equals money. They want to do things faster, more easily. They need to be compliant. So you need to make sure that you're not just throwing technology at the problems, but you're really making their lives better. And that means helping them to see the big picture, the why, helping them to know how to use the product. And what I often see, I was just talking to a company yesterday that does, they find a lot of their customers. So they have a platform to help companies manage all their subscription software tools, right? And they said a lot of their customers revert to their spreadsheets. They're used to managing everything on spreadsheets. And so I was telling them, you have to not just deploy this great product, but what happens, people are comfortable in their spreadsheets. They're familiar. That's what they've always done. And even though your product is like so much more powerful and sophisticated, you need to help them bridge that gap. And otherwise, they're always going to keep that spreadsheet in their back pocket. And when they're looking at expenses, or when people like to stay with what's familiar. So then they'll go, oh, whenever that spreadsheet's hanging around your product, your renewal is at risk.
Absolutely, and you need to be paying attention to that all the way through, not just at the time when someone buys. This makes sense.
Correct.
So we have some questions from listeners, which I'm very pleased about. Let's see if we can do those. So Donna, could you repeat for Amy, where was that data from 50 to 80% of revenue from existing customers? Where did that come from?
You know what? It's from McKinsey. I have it quoted in my book, Onboarding Matters, but I couldn't tell you exactly where.
Okay.
But
So
there's some great McKinsey articles.
Look in the bibliography, in the footnotes of Donna's book, and then you'll know.
Yeah,
exactly
and I can follow up. I can post that on Squirrel Squadron. Let me
perfect. Please
make
do.
a note.
That would really help. So Amy, have a look on the forum afterward, or ask either of us. We'll certainly chase up the reference for you if you need it. But it's a McKinsey statistic, which I've also seen and quoted. Marcin asks, there are many interesting software platforms that help with customer onboarding. Do you recommend any in particular? I will just come in and say, don't forget the best platform, which of all my favorite platform, which is no platform. And that's an option you should always keep in mind. But Donna, what do you see? You know this market much better than me.
Yeah, there's a growing category of onboarding software, and I'm friendly with most of them. I know that I know most of the folks, and it's a really exciting space. However, I always tell people I'm working with, you don't throw technology at problems. So the first thing is to design a really optimized onboarding framework, and that's something I can help you with. And then we see where technology can help. So those tools are really great if you have a long and complex onboarding process. And when you really need to keep your customers accountable, there's a lot of things customers need to do. And so those are great because you can really build that accountability, transparency, you can assign things. And then also from a management perspective, then you can start to track how long each stage of onboarding is taking, where people are getting stuck, where the blockers are. Maybe you can see, hey, Squirrel does onboarding twice as fast as Marcy does it. What's going on there? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? So then you can really run your onboarding business because you can see what's happening. I've seen companies where they're delivering it in project management tools and they're running, they'll have a template and then each account is, they've got it as a separate project plan. But customers often can't see into that to see. So then what happens is the customers are waiting around for the company to do everything for them. They don't really get that that they're accountable for their side of things. And two, you don't get that visibility of what's happening across, let's say, an onboarding specialist, all the accounts they own, and then the whole onboarding team, what's happening there. And managing the backlog
overloading
and
your
everything.
customer service. You might be giving them too much to do because you're asking them to keep track of so many accounts. Or conversely, you might have no activity in the accounts. There's nothing to keep track of, but you don't know.
Exactly.
Got it. Here's my contrarian point of view on this, which is I'm with you, Donna, always on not starting with technology. And when I said have no platform, what I meant was get to understand the actual steps. Often people don't even understand what all the steps are that customers are going through. There are 5 or 6 steps that are invisible to them, that they know the technical activities, but there's this whole training piece that they don't know about, or there's this whole component where there's some experimentation or data configuration or something like that. They don't even know what the steps are. So I often find that if you can get people to do things manually first, and keep really good notes and update with a process, then you have a much easier time, as you say, figuring out which piece of software makes sense, if any. You might be simple enough that actually you could run on a spreadsheet. So
yeah,
bear that in mind.
I completely
No technology
agree.
Is a good platform to consider.
I completely agree. Start with people, define the process, and document it, and then, so people, processes, and then technology. And then once you have a defined process, that's going to help you define your requirements for the technology. So you're not getting whiplashed by the vendors telling you all about all their awesome functions and features.
You got it. We've got a great question. The really engaged audience today, really appreciate that. Chrissy has a question. She says, once the sales team signs and sends over new customers, she has trouble engaging them. She's trouble kind of getting them moving through the onboarding process. That she gets outbound email. She sends outbound emails. The people don't get started. They feel overwhelmed by so much that they have to do. She begs them to let her help them. Says, look, we have people. We'd love to have you get some help, and they don't respond. What could we do with overwhelmed tech-averse customers that aren't responsive to engagement? I'll let you take that first, Donna. I've got some ideas, but please go.
Okay. Yeah, so what I do, so I have 6 stages of my orchestrated onboarding framework. The first stage is called Embark, and that's where you're showing customers the journey ahead. That might, Chrissy, that might happen in the sales journey. So you have the sales rep start to share in value prop slides, hey, this is our journey ahead. So you start to communicate what's required of the company, of the users, of the project team. I like to have an internal handoff, so you're passing over the kind of all the relationship collateral from the sales team to the post-sales teams, and then a customer handoff. So that's the second stage of the framework is the handoff stage. And so that, again, is a big picture, high-level meeting with the customer, helping them to see the journey ahead, rather than most people try to jump right into the kickoff meeting, which is all about the tactics and the technical and the dates, and people get overwhelmed. So especially when your customers are tech averse or not tech savvy, then you help them see the journey ahead, and so that they know what they need to do, where they're going, and why. That why is really important. You might be familiar with Simon Sinek. He has a book called Start With Why. I highly recommend his TED Talk, which covers everything in 18 minutes, right? Start with why. So what happens remember, we're dealing with people. From a neurological level, The why helps people to kind of understand and process what's going on. And then you get to the how and the what. But mostly with tech people tend to dive right into the what. And so you want to start with why, show them the journey ahead, how you're going to do it, and then you have that kickoff meeting, which is and then the third stage, which is kickoff, and then you get into the details. So you slow down, and when you do that, what I find is things happen much more quickly. So you slow down upstream, so you really remove the blockers and resistance downstream.
Big fan of that for sure. I'll give a contrarian view, which is, and it's influenced by my technical background. And so, Donna, you may violently disagree. That would be great. But it strikes me that the most successful companies that have had the least leaky buckets, the ones who have the best retention and best progress that I've seen, have extremely simple initial onboarding. So there's a way to get value really, really early. And I'm thinking here of situations where you don't have to hook up any integrations. You don't have to hook up to any of the data that your customer has. But there's something that they can do that lets them immediately get something useful. And I'll go back to that company that I referred to before, where I was very foolishly opposed to marketing. One thing that we did, which was great marketing, unknown to me, I didn't understand it at the time, is there was a way for you to see the traffic and the information that you could pay us to get. And there was a way for you immediately upon signing up, without having done anything, to configure the incoming data stream. This was financial data, so it was information about what stocks were going up and down across the world and what people thought about them. And you could get this sentiment information without any action. You could just sign up, and it was really amazing at the time because people weren't used to using browsers yet. This is quite a long time ago. And so you would just open a browser on the trader's screen and say, look, here's the incoming traffic. Well, don't I have to do something? Don't I have to give permissions? Don't I have to? No, it's just here. And as soon as I could log in as them, then I could show them this information. Now, then they got all interested in which bits can I tune, which bits can I add, and so on. So I wonder what you think about extremely quick starts, so that you don't have this this long process where you need it, you have to have it, but there's many places you don't. Am I wrong?
Yeah, Squirrel, I violently agree with you. And that, how can we get to value as quickly as possible? And the thing is, there's a big chant in technology about product-led growth right now. And if that works with your product, that's awesome. So, a lot of us are familiar with Slack. That can be deployed, and I get value in moments. And if you have a consumption-based product or pay-as-you-go, you had better deliver value in moments.
ChatGPT is a perfect example of that. I can just go on, start talking to ChatGPT is a perfect example of that. You can just
I don't have to go
log in, use it.
Yeah. And so if there's an opportunity, absolutely. The reality is that in a lot of business-to-business software, there's APIs to connect, there's data to migrate, there's customizations, and it's quite complex, and it can take a long time. But on the product development side, over the last decade plus, we've really moved to an agile and iterative approach. And then what I see on the deployment side, it's still monolithic, where customers are just sitting in the dark for weeks or months or even years. And so I am really looking at how can we break down these deployments to be agile and iterative so that customers can receive some value very quickly. I want customers to get value, in weeks rather than sitting around for months. I mean, imagine as a consumer, you buy something and you just sit around and you don't even get it for months. I mean, we just won't stand for that, right? I order something, and if I have to sit around for more than 3 days, I start getting pretty frustrated, right? I want something to show up on my doorstep pretty quickly now. And so we need to break those deployments down into the agile and iterative components. So that might mean modularizing your product. I mean, if I can give an example, I worked with a CRM product company based in Hungary, and their product is for very small businesses, and the sales cycle is very short, like 3 weeks. And then they were like, hey, we'll do anything. Our product is infinitely customizable.
Very
and
dangerous.
then they would
your engineers are not going to be happy about that. Keep going.
And then they would take about 4 months to deploy the product. And these are little mom and pop run businesses, operator-owned businesses.
They were over.
And by then time, they were long gone. The customers were totally lost interest. They were gone. And so we were looking at, hey, how can we deliver some value quickly? And they were looking at persona value, like value for different personas. And when we started talking about quick wins and value, it didn't just talk about, how do we get some value to a customer? It actually changed how they develop, deploy, market, sell, and onboard their products. So rather than this infinitely customizable platform, they created modules. So they have sales module, marketing module, HR module, project module, and now they sell these distinct modules for distinct personas. They're deployed within 2 weeks. And now they have infinite opportunity to keep selling new modules to existing customers. So it really transformed everything about their business.
Fantastic. And the thing I really like there is that something you might think of as very positive, i.e. you can customize this as much as you want. We can add bits, we can improve it to meet your needs. That's actually not a useful thing because it overwhelms the customer. The poor customer is
exactly
saying, it's taking me forever to get this thing and you sold me it months ago and I was supposed to get use out of it. But here, these other guys, they have something I can use today. It's not perfect. It's not infinitely customizable, but it's here. And it's awful lot better to be here. So,
and also customers may know what they want, but they don't know what they need. So in a similar way, back to that gym analogy, let's say you're my personal trainer, Squirrel. I show up and you're like, hey, Donna, what do you feel like today? I'll tailor anything you want for you. And I'm like, well, you know what? I had a late night, Squirrel. Let's go have a coffee. That would delight me.
Yep.
But that might delight me in the moment.
Yep.
But it's not going to give me any results. So you need to make sure you're delivering results to customers and not just chasing their wants because they don't know what they want sometimes. Excuse me. They might think they know what they want, but they don't really know what they need.
Absolutely. So we've got some questions. So let's see if we can help with those. So Tori asks, how do you feel about onboarding welcome packets or sending out onboarding questionnaires and what should and shouldn't be included? I will try not to make any faces and I'll let Donna respond.
Well, so it all depends because I don't know your business, but absolutely, an automated welcome email is always great. So that and what I've learned, I've been reading a bit about neuroscience. That even if you have, let's say you have an onboarding specialist or a customer success manager, someone's going to kind of be guiding them through the journey, having a photo or a short video, welcoming them and links to resources to get them started. That's great. Questionnaires, it really depends. If you're going to just ask them the same things that they've already been asked by the sales rep, then that's just going to piss them off. So, ideally, you as a post-sales person, as a customer-facing person, already know a lot of that stuff, and you don't need to ask the customer again. Hey, why'd you buy our product? What's your goals? You should have all of that. So you don't want to keep asking the customers the same things over and over. That will just frustrate them. So, but if it's like, I've worked with companies where we designed a questionnaire so that right away, let's say, we talked about how to make your deployment more agile and iterative. I worked with companies where they said, look, it would take us 3 weeks to even get the right information so we could start migrating data from their existing systems. Great, the minute the deal closes, here's a questionnaire so they can start filling that stuff out. It's going to take 3 weeks to get a payment gateway set up. We can't have the kickoff meeting until that payment gateway is set up. Great, tell them, get your payment gateway set up. So you're not waiting 3 weeks to have a kickoff meeting and then everything's stalled to just get that information. So in that regard, yes, you can get things moving, but don't ask them things you should know.
Makes sense. Now, I was making faces because I just have this visceral reaction to a welcome packet. Because it feels like to me what happens when I buy insurance and I get a schedule and I get a list of things and a policy document and another thing and a whole bunch of stuff to look at. And I don't know which bit is important. I don't know what to listen to or what to actually sign or if I have to do anything. Have I already got the insurance? It's very confusing, and insurance companies and others love to do this as a way of driving away customers. It actually makes you not want to interact with that customer, which is exactly the opposite of what I think Donna and I are saying and agreeing about.
Yeah,
So
you don't. So
yeah.
The point is to deliver the right content for the right user at the right time. And with AI, we can do that more and more. So you don't want to just
get to this.
dump.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, you don't want to just dump information on them. If I can give a couple personal examples,
Please.
I recently moved into the house that I'm in, and we've been doing a lot of work and dealing with different vendors. And so we recently got air conditioning put in, and the vendor uses software. It's called Service Titan, and coincidentally, my nephew works there. But I was so impressed because I called and scheduled to have a technician come out and do their assessment. And I got a text and an email, and they had a packet saying, this is what to expect. This is how to prepare for this meeting. I wasn't even a customer, right? This is what you need to have ready. Like, you need to have your latest electricity bills. You need to have this, blah. And it was so impressed. I had linked to a website with everything to prepare. They sent texts and emails with photos of the technician coming. So then when this person showed up, I knew their name and what they looked like. It really built a lot of trust. On the other hand, I was working with a solar vendor, and we did our due diligence. We picked after we met with 4 different vendors. We picked one. We paid our deposit, and then we went 3 weeks without hearing a thing before the technician came out to do all the assessment. And what would have made a big difference, as an onboarding expert, if they just had an email from the sales rep to the office person or the technician saying, hey, you're in good hands, Donna. We'll schedule time for the technician. It will take about 3 weeks for our next steps. Otherwise, what happens, I'm a person with a brain and a subconscious. I start going into fear and doubt. My lizard brain starts creating worst case scenarios. I start ruminating and prospecting, and I start going, oh shit, we picked the wrong vendor. We're just sitting around. We paid our money. We're screwed. And so you don't want your customers going into that. So if you can deliver the right kind of touch at the right time to make sure you're building that trust and confidence, that can really make a difference.
Fantastic. And I think the key thing that I'm picking out from that, thinking about it a little more technically, is that what you're not doing is trying to solve the whole problem at once. And us engineers, we tend to think like the insurance company. Let's send everything. Let's send the policy document, the thing for them to sign, and the schedule, and the something else, and all the conditions and so on. Whereas if you spread it out a bit more so it's actually linked to something that's going to happen, that would be helpful. Your next step is to sign this document. Then you'll get your claims and your policy document, and then you'll get the schedule that you can show to people who need to see that you have insurance. Or in your case, you had a meeting coming. Here are the things you need to do to prepare. I bet they didn't say, oh, by the way, we also want your credit card number, and we want this information. We want these other 7 things. And, what's your goldfish's name? They didn't say any of that. They're going to ask that stuff later. So I think to Tori's question, my visceral reaction to this idea of a packet is the experience of getting this from insurers and other folks like that. Stop thinking about a packet. What can you give the customer that they need today that they can act on that will build that trust and that confidence? That's how I think about it. And engineers, don't try to solve the whole problem. Pace it to the speed of your customer. Brittany asks, is there a best time window to kick off onboarding with customers? I would say yesterday. What do you think, Donna?
Yeah, as soon as possible. Again, you don't want to, the longer you just leave customers, without engaging them, the more they're, so let's say the buyer is, they did their due diligence and they are, their reputation or even their job is on the line because of the product they chose. You don't want them to start, you don't want to start the relationship with them wondering and worrying. You don't want them to even go there. So remember, first impressions can establish, ongoing judgments of how it is to work with you and your company. So you need to set things off on the right footing, right at the very beginning.
And I always say that the best time to start building an account management relationship is before the deal closes. And the best time to get customers excited about your product is before they put in their credit card number. So during the sales process, this also answers the question that we got earlier. How do I get this information? And Donna said, well, you should already have a lot of it. Well, a good way you could already have it is to be part of the sales process. So can you shift, in engineering, we talk about shifting left, about trying to do things earlier in the process or being involved sooner. one way you could certainly be involved sooner is to get in there in the sales process. And this goes for engineers too. So whatever stage you're at, if you're the person who's setting up the integrations, you ought to be talking to the customer before the deal closes, so you know who the key people are who have decided to go with you and who are going to be spending that 3 weeks with you setting up the API so that they can get the data. If you're in customer service, you ought to know who's going to be your main contact, who's the person you're going to be sending the packet or the appointment information or whatever it is to, and you should know some of the answers to those questions and start building that relationship. So the sooner you can do that, the faster you can get involved, the better. And far too many companies just have this huge divide between sales and everyone else, which includes customer service, engagement, implementation, and engineering.
Absolutely. And the reality is that technology is becoming more and more commoditized. And so the experience, the service you provide may be what separates you from your competitors, may be what differentiates you. So think about that. So it's not, again, about just the technology, it's about the experience. So if I can go back to that gym analogy, so I moved to this town just over a year ago. There are 2 gyms in the town. They are right next door to each other. I live in a very small town. There are 2 gyms. They are next door to each other. One of them has been around since the 80s. It's very old school. There's no classes. The other one just opened, and they know their audience, right? They've got aromatherapy, humidifiers. They have tea. They have classes. And it's clean. And the other one's old school. Now, I can go get the same workout in both gyms. And I chose the new one because I like to have I want to go, they have the spinning studio, and so they both know their audience. They're right next door to each other. They both know, they're targeting different audiences. So you need to know your audience and what experience they want.
Absolutely. And so the other one might be targeting an audience who's not you, Donna. So I'm just going to speak up for them. Maybe they're looking for people who are much more interested in hardcore, unpleasant, painful experiences. And, they want to make sure that, you don't have all the comforts, the creature comforts and the spinning classes and so on. They want people who are more masochistic. I don't know. But if you can separate your customers like that, one thing we talked about a few months ago on the live stream here was how important it is to divide your customers and actually to annoy some people who might be customers so they go somewhere else. In this case, we've landed the customer. We should know something about what they want, and we should be telling them about the value that we can give to them. Again, reinforcing the value of understanding this customer. What on earth do they want? What's their value? You can know that on day one if you find that out early enough. And that I just want to keep emphasizing this applies to you engineers too, because you can be finding out about customers, you can be figuring out who the key people are, and you can be taking steps early. So I'm not going to let you off the hook here. Now, one thing struck me. We've been talking a lot about don't be silent, start early, get involved, communicate to the customer. But I've actually seen it go the other way. And I wonder if you have any opinion about this, Donna. So the attitude that, now this was business to customer, but I've seen it in B2B as well. In another company I worked with, which had very high volume e-commerce traffic. So we were selling half-price Louis Vuitton handbags, believe it or not. So very popular. Lots of people liked us, and we could get a lot of people's attention very quickly, and we had a lot of email addresses to send to. So the solution was send a lot of email. And if we wanted people to be more excited about us, the answer was send more email and put more in the email and make it more informative and give more information. It was always more. And what I found sometimes, and we certainly found it there, is there's a saturation point. People say, well, look, I'm hearing so much from this company. They're very excited about me. They seem to know me, but it's kind of like someone gives you a hug and you can't breathe. You're like, oh man, could you let me out? Could I go somewhere else, please? So I wonder if you see that kind of overreaction where people are over communicating rather than under communicating.
Well, first of all, I just want to say email, I don't know the best way to connect with customers, but email is no longer the way. So, again, let's go back to the right touch for the right persona at the right time. And it's about driving the right behavior that's going to deliver value for you and your company. So for the user and your company. So for So I have a mantra I like to say, which is transformation, not information. So every time you touch a customer, you want to make sure you're delivering value and you're not just drowning them in information. And so likely in your product, there's a journey that a persona, let's say you have three personas. Let's say you have data scientists, you have data analysts, have data administrators. Each of them is going to have a different kind of journey in your solution. And so you don't just dump everything on everyone and then they have to kind of wade through it and find what they need. In this world with AI, they should, have some way of identifying what persona they are, or they can self-identify. And then it's taking them on a journey where they're going to get some initial value, and then you can take them on a value journey and not just try to give them everything for everyone all at once, because that just overwhelms them and alienates them. Again, back with this product-led growth, are there ways in your platform where you can have in-app guidance or, checklists or workflows in your platform? So again, you're guiding people to solutions, not just, let me navigate, let's just show you around. People don't want to navigate. They want value. Everyone's overwhelmed. Everyone has a million things to do. So the faster and easier that they can do what they need and get out, maybe just that be the best way that you can help them. So the way that is to really know your users and give them the right touch. Like, I have this one company that I like to buy jeans from, and I like their emails, but they send them every single day. And I wouldn't mind.
That was our strategy. Twice a day we would send them.
I wouldn't mind once a week. Yep. I wish I unsubscribed completely. I wish I could have just changed it. I'd like to hear from you once a week. I don't want an email. I'm not buying jeans every day, folks. So
how many jeans do I need?
Yeah. So that turned me off. So you need to know, and so you need to know your users. You need to know your customers, what they want and need, how they like to learn. When I worked with big data companies, and their customers like self-service. Like they just don't bother me, just give me the information I need. But you better make sure that information is current, it's accurate, because if they're finding all this stuff that's out of date, that conflicts, then that doesn't work. So then you need to take them on a content journey that really drives the behavior that delivers value.
There you go. Makes sense. Now, you said something that was a bit of a trigger for me, and folks who come to many of these will know that I'm going to jump on it, because you said in the world of AI, we can kind of figure out who's which persona and how to use it. I'm just going to give a warning here, and I wonder what you've experienced with this, Donna. You may know more than me, so please correct me. But my experience is that AI is very good at giving you partial information. It's good at being a research assistant. But you don't want it being the primary author. You don't want it being the one that decides, okay, I'm going to write these words to this customer at this point in the journey, because it's unreliable. So it sometimes makes things up. I think we've all got used to that. But it's also anodyne. It's the most boring in the world. It is the lowest common denominator writing that you've ever seen. So what I tend to ask my customers to do, my clients that ask me for help in this area, is I say, make sure you have a centaur. And this is a term from chess, where people who play chess with a computer next to them are called centaurs, like the ancient Greek half horse, half human. And centaurs for a long time could beat computers, because the human would add more creativity and more interest, more ideas that the computer could not. And similarly, what I'd love to see is people using AI to figure out, well, from the behavior of this person and from what we can see on LinkedIn and from these other sources, what persona do they most naturally fit? And then a human checks it. And particularly looks out for the anomalies. Yeah. But it's far too easy for people to say, oh, yes, we're going to automate everything. The AI will do it. Please don't do that. Stop.
We are in the very early stages. We can't just kind of hand it all over. And there, when there's an opportunity there. I work in the industry called customer success. And right now, everyone's all excited about digital customer success. And the reality of creating a really impactful digital customer experience that delivers all this value we've been talking about would probably take 2 years to build and several $100,000 to create the great tech stack that's going to deliver a great experience.
Millions,
So
millions, I would say. Go ahead.
so you're not. So
And
it's
it'll
not
be
like,
out
oh,
of
great,
date by the
digital.
time you had it done. So the 2
And
years
what?
it would be out of date by the time you had it
Yeah,
done.
that's true. So it's not like, oh, great, that's going to solve our problem. So what I'm looking for, I call it hybrid customer success, hybrid onboarding. Can you deliver in a high touch journey? Can you deliver a digital moment, a tech touch moment? So that might be a welcome email. That might be some self-paced customer enablement. I've worked with companies where we built out self-paced onboarding, but we had some high touch moments to prevent drop off, so customers could really get what they need when they need it. Now we had in-app chat and monitored by humans. That's a great opportunity for the company to learn where customers are getting stuck, and then can create in-app tools and improve the product so that customers don't get stuck there. So anywhere where there is consistent, basic, repeatable stuff going on, there's an opportunity to automate it. There's a quote that a colleague told me, which was originally from the founder of the Four Seasons, and it's systemize the predictable so you can humanize the exceptional. So that's what AI is really about, is we want to humanize the exceptional, so we're not having to do all this basic stuff over and over and over. So it frees us up to be fabulous. I work with so many companies where the customer-facing teams they're all doing the same things over and over and over. So one, that is demotivating and frustrating and boring, and then they're not getting job satisfaction. Two, it's really expensive. And so what you want to do is you want to leverage technology for those things so that they can be the strategic advisors in helping customers on their unique use cases and scenarios to thrive.
Makes sense. And one of my early clients did a wonderful thing. They took a technically minded person, a product manager, a person who was thinking about the customer and working directly with the engineers, and they put his face and his name in the app. So when you would be going along doing your thing, Ben would pop up and he would say, "Hi, it's Ben." Now it was automated and it was computer generated and so on, but and everybody knew that. They knew Ben wasn't actually there. But when you actually type something, it went to Ben. And then you would get a reply from Ben.
That's awesome.
And so that was a very nice way of humanizing it, so that you had the idea that there was a person behind this. You knew it was the computer telling you, but you knew also that you would hear from the actual Ben, who would come back to you and say, "Oh, I understand you got stuck there. Here's what you can do, and we'll add this feature."
And when you have like developers, they love working with developers, and when they know who it is, they love learning from them.
That's fantastic. And engineers, pay attention to that. I have so many folks. I had a CEO just a few weeks ago asking on the forum, "Hey, Squirrel, why is it that you keep telling me to have my engineers meet customers? I mean, couldn't they be much more productive if they were typing?" And I said, "Man, if they're typing, they might be typing the wrong stuff." So it's a very useful investment to have people like Ben, who are highly technical and also understand customers, interacting directly with them and feeding back. Another thing I often do is have somebody like a Ben make a video of someone in a user research session or something like that and show it to the developers, because they're not always in the same time zone. You can't always make them directly interact. But the funny thing is then you get the developers looking at the screen and they say, no, click on the left. It's on the left. And of course, it's not live. The person isn't there. They can't hear them, but they're still screaming, "Click left. It's on the left side." And then everybody understands, actually, we should put the button on the right. Nobody knows where it is. So,
well, you know what, my
interaction has huge benefits. Go ahead.
The beginning of my tech career was working in a usability lab at Netscape. And that's exactly what we did, was to really understand how the people were interacting with the product, with the technology.
And bringing us back to our topic, it is, and bringing us back to our topic, this is where you can have tremendous impact. So I'm answering that question on the forum again, but with a new light now. One of the things you can do is fix your leaky bucket by having that kind of interaction. And by the way, Donna, I'm going to be quoting you forever now. Customers love talking to developers. It's really true. And Donna agrees with me that it's absolutely fantastic and confidence building to be hearing from someone who says, "Yeah, I wrote that code last week and I understand it should be on the right now. Let me go and fix that." You get this sense of empowerment and impact that you don't get if you're talking to someone who, with the best will in the world, is very friendly and nice and helpful and says, "Yeah, I'll raise a ticket for technology." Right? You don't get that. It's a very different interaction, and it builds a tremendous amount of confidence. in a low-tech way and high touch, but with a huge impact on technology. So I think that's a really useful idea. So when we're talking about things like packets and digital customer success and AI and automation, don't forget, it'd be really good if you could get your technical people on the phone with your customers. Could you make that one of your high touch points? That's hard to say. Excellent. Donna, we're coming toward the end of the time that we have. We've had some wonderful questions. Could you just tell us, where could people find more about Donna? You mentioned your book. Where could they find you and more information about you?
Absolutely. So my website is donnaweber.com. That's DONNA, and then Weber with one B, like the grill. And you can check out under my resources tab. I write lots of articles. I have lots of valuable free resources. So check those out. Thank you, Squirrel. And then I am teaching my orchestrated onboarding masterclass. So if you want to really dive in, roll up your sleeves and take your onboarding process and your customers and your company to the next level. My next masterclass starts on September 14th. And so join in. And it's a great way to learn from others who are doing the same things as you, to know that you're not alone.
Fantastic. Okay. And Donna, we had so many great questions and so much to talk about that we ran out of all the time that I would have liked to have. Oh, Amy says, highly recommend Donna's orchestrated onboarding book. Excellent. So get the book for sure.
Amy.
And if you're interested in further discussion about this, because there's some topics I didn't even get to, so Donna and I will keep going on the forum. Or if you're interested in more events like this, talking to more interesting folks like Donna, getting a tech and non-tech view on interesting topics that we have coming up, like keeping your work visible and having fun and why that's important to your tech team, that's all at squirrelsquadron.com, which is my community of tech and non-tech people learning together, just like we've done for the last hour. Well, it's wonderful to have you, Donna. Thank you so much for coming along. Thank you to all the folks who participated, Amy and Tori and Marcin. And we had even more questions I'm not even seeing. So thanks, everyone, for coming along. And we look forward to hearing your questions and ideas on the forum or anywhere else. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thanks so much. And thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Squirrel.